New details about the intelligence that led to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's bombshell allegation against India have emerged. As first reported here last night, sources tell CBC News that intelligence includes communications involving Indian officials. The months-long investigation saw Canadian officials make several trips to India seeking cooperation from that country's government. Canadian sources say that when pressed behind closed doors, no Indian official has denied Trudeau's allegations that there is evidence to suggest Indian government involvement in the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
We have drawn these facts to the attention of the Indian government. We did it quietly. We did it directly to them through a number of official channels, and we did not get any kind of response. And so now we've made them public, and we're telling people that of course, these allegations are going to be pursued legally. There will be the RCMP investigation will continue. Other investigations will continue.
Yukon Premier Ranj Pillai was leading a business delegation that was in New Delhi on Monday night when Trudeau made his initial allegation. Premier Ranj Pillai joins me now. Premier, it's good to speak with you again.
Great to speak with you, David.
Okay, so Monday was a shock for those of us here in Ottawa, but you were in India working to strengthen your business relationship with that country. I mean, what was going through your mind when the Prime Minister made this allegation?
Well, we just come off a great day of meetings. Of course, with the time change, we were wrapping the day up. It was late in the evening. I was actually just going through some briefing material for the next day, and the news hit, and it was it was a shock, and I really was trying to take a look at what was going to play out from that, and trying to figure out what our next steps were because we were on the ground in Delhi at that time.
Did you have any heads up? I know the opposition leaders were pulled into a meeting with the Prime Minister for a quick briefing before he announced what he announced in Parliament. Did you, as a Premier who was in India at the time, have any idea this was coming?
No, we've got some concern definitely this week coming out of that experience. We did all the preparation leading up to our trip. We were in Japan for a few days, had some very successful meetings there around mining and tourism, and then we're in southern India leading up to Monday. Again, really successful meetings around recruitment of talent in the healthcare field. I sat with the High Commissioner on Monday morning. We had a good briefing. There was definitely a chill in the air in India coming out of G20, but there was no concerns passed on to us, and no idea that we were going to have an announcement like we did that night. And that certainly changed the feeling with our team and the feeling on the ground in New Delhi.
Did the government of Canada know you were there? Do you think you should have gotten a heads up that maybe something like this was coming, given your location, your profile, and your potential exposure there?
Yeah, I mean, our team did all of the right things. We sent an advance team over in July. We had a national security briefing. I won't get into the detail going into this. Our team felt safe. When we met with the High Commissioner, who did a great job while we were there, we were made aware that there was definitely, again, some chill, but there was no concern around safety, and we did not know. I mean, I was in my hotel room when the news broke, and then woke up the next morning. We had some meetings that we had planned to happen on the hotel grounds with, again, some of the top leading healthcare professionals, tourism investment, film investment, tech investment. We carried through with those meetings during the day. But I quickly had to turn my focus to ensuring that my team was safe, that we had proper plans in place with the High Commission to get our teams out to the airport. We had already planned to leave that evening, and that was when our flights were going to departure, and that was our focus. But I think I would have liked to have had a conversation. I have good relationships with a number of ministers, and I was in Ottawa yesterday, and I spoke with Minister LeBlanc and talked about what is our protocol, how do we deal with these things when we have subnational leaders, premiers on the ground. And I think the common sense thing would have been for somebody to reach out and just give us a sense that things were going to be okay, or at least we knew what resources were around us to help us if needed.
Did you notice a change in things on the ground in a big way after this happened? And how do you think this affects the relationship between your province and India, this country and India, and the community here going forward?
There was definitely, it was the talk. I mean, there was talk around the G20 conversations. Nobody really knew the details, but people were concerned. I mean, the healthcare professionals, the business people, there's so much at stake I mean, I'm respectful to the fact we have a very serious situation, potentially. We're waiting to see more information at play here that we all have to be aware of. But when you think about the investment from Canada, the hundreds of thousands of students that are from India in Canada, there's so much connection. And then we have all these folks that have made Canada their home for generations. Same, you know, my dad moved from India in the late 60s and contributed to his community for many years. So there's a lot of angst right now. I guess what I would say is, you know, for people that have moved from India or multi-generational here in Canada, but, you know, their origins are from India, you know, Canada understands your contribution to this country. This is your home. You know, you're wanted and needed here. And I think we all have to really be sensitive to what's playing out and ensure that students that are here feel comfortable and they feel safe, because things have changed dramatically over the last few days.
But how do you think the relation between Canada and India, commercially, trade-wise, you know, politically, can continue when we've seen now that they have signals intelligence, they have human intelligence. The United States has largely kind of corroborated what Canada is saying here, to the point that President Biden has raised this with Prime Minister Modi. It feels like the closest allies are backing Canada on this. How can you have a relationship with a government like Prime Minister Modi's under this current situation?
I think you just have to focus on the business-to-business relations. You got to focus on the healthcare professionals to the healthcare professionals. When you think about academia, there's so much connection between universities in Canada and universities in India. So I think right now it's where do we focus on the common ground, on the areas that are not going to be politicized the way the current situation is. And you know what I'm hearing in Ottawa, and I think that most Canadians know, I mean, this is the biggest democracy in the world. I'm not discounting what has been said or what has potentially happened here. You know, I think all of us as strong Canadians want to see the rule of law upheld, and if something significant has happened, then that has to be dealt with. But at the same time, it's not that simple. I mean, there's just so much of the fabrics of both countries that are interwoven. We're going to have to take that into consideration, and we're going to have to figure out a pathway forward on a number of areas. And on the issue at hand here, you know, we'll let the proper course of action take place, and if something's happened, that's going to have to be dealt with as well. But you know, lots of relationships around the world are complex, and I don't think any of them are simple, whether it's us in the U.S. or anybody else. So I think we're just going to have to understand that and have patience. But again, make sure that people on the ground here feel safe, especially these students that are all trying to contribute to our country, and you know, maybe want to make this their home, and people that we really need to make our economy stronger and our culture stronger and our you know, our society stronger.
Well, just as a quick final point on that, how do you think people are feeling in terms of their safety on these things? I mean, we've had a travel advisory issued by the Indian government saying Canada isn't necessarily a safe place for you to go. The visa issue, they're suspending visas, and it feels like it could escalate from the Indian side. It doesn't feel like Canada is going to do it. So how do you think people here in the community are feeling about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I'm not in the federal arena, so right. I'll just say from, you know, what I'm observing is a lot of posturing. I think that's something that normally would happen between, you know, national governments. I think that there's a lot of angst. I think people are trying to understand how to handle this. I mean, I think my feelings from being in Ottawa this week, whether it's MPs and multiple parties, I was at one event when I first arrived on Wednesday, and you could tell, you know, whether it was conservative or liberal. I mean, they were all trying to figure it out. They have constituents that they represent from all different backgrounds. So, I mean, people are still trying to figure this out. I think we have to ensure that the temperature doesn't continue to rise. We still have to be respectful again of the fact that people, you know, they've made this their home. A lot of students, we got to make sure they feel safe. At the same time, you know, these are some serious accusations that have been made, and we also have to take the proper course if those, you know, what we believe could be true is true. So, you know, I think, but again, we got to take the temperature down, and we have to understand that this is a long-term relationship with the biggest democracy in the world that has a population of 1.4 billion and are going to be a significant player for a long time to come.
Okay, Premier Pillai, it's always good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Good to speak with you.